What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Now, I've got a pretty good video for you guys today. I got an article coming from the Rolling Stone, as a matter of fact. And this is a place that you can always count on. It's a guarantee that when Democrats lose, you can go over here to Rolling Stone and see nothing but copium, seething, and just utter bitterness with the rest of the world and everybody else in this entire world. It's just great to watch some of these people redirect their aggravations upon everybody. It's great. But right before we get into the video, I want y'all to do me a big favor. I need your help, y'all. I really, really need your help. Do me a favor, smash that like button for me. I would greatly appreciate that. And if you're new around here and want to stay up to date and informed with exactly how you're being manipulated by the news apparatus these days, then subscribe to this channel. That's the only way to stay up to date and stay informed with everything that's going on in the world of manipulation that is the corporate press. But let's go ahead and get into this thing right quick, because this is a gem in the... It's a diamond. In my view. Check this out, y'all. Dem operatives offer an exhaustive accounting of the Harris campaign's faults. So here we go. We got a lot of coping, a lot of seething, and tons of finger pointing everywhere, y'all. Let's get into it. Kamala Harris raised more than $1.5 billion in less than 107 days, a staggering, incomprehensible sum of money that signified an enormous confidence in her ability to deliver the presidency. And then she went on to lose all 7 battleground states and the popular vote to a 4 times indicted, twice impeached, convicted felon and adjudicated sexual abuser. Right? Like, this is the dream world they're living in. Sure, you can say all of these things, but where's the substance of the felony convictions? What, some made-up garbage? Falsifying business records that, to any normal, average, everyday American, would be a misdemeanor, but because it's Donald Trump, it was elevated to 34 felony counts, and then adjudicated sexual abuser. Oh my God. What? Well, hang on here. So, let's get into the context of that. We've got a law that was changed in New York just so they could bring this case. And then a story that nobody believes, that's just, it's a total, just complete falsehood. Nobody believes it. It's an unbelievable story outright. And somehow they found him liable for this. It's absurd on its face. But this is the narrative they're going to go with, y'all. Just... let's keep going, though. If losing that badly weren't effed up enough, the campaign appears to have ceased operations, tens of millions of dollars in debt. Oh, yeah. Here we go with the seething, y'all. The party's financial outlook is so bleak that on November 18th, the Democratic National Committee laid off an undisclosed number of staff with a single day's notice and no severance, an act the party's union decried as the result of callous and short-sighted management. It was a truly ignominious end to Harris's much-hyped candidacy. So unsurprisingly, there are a lot of people, Democratic voters, volunteers, and donors asking what the hell happened. Yes, they want to know what the hell happened because they gave their hard-earned tax dollars to this lady who just blew it on everything. She just dropped the ball, destroyed her entire campaign. Like, this is who the Democrats chose, right? And it's not the Democrat voters. The Democrat elites said, we're going to put Kamala Harris because Joe Biden dropped out, and they treated it like it's the presidency or something. And, you know, if Joe Biden were to resign, Kamala Harris would be the president. So, let's translate that onto the candidacy and say that Kamala Harris is going to be the candidate instead of letting the voters decide, right? So what does that tell you? The party of defending democracy doesn't give a damn about democracy. That's what it tells me, y'all. Great. Anyone looking for a satisfying answer won't be getting it from senior Harris-Walz officials, 4 of whom, campaign manager Jen O'Malley-Dion, deputy campaign manager Quentin Fulks, and senior advisor Stephanie Cutter and David Plouffe, emerged from the still smoldering wreckage of the campaign this week to chat with Pod Save America about what went wrong. Oh, you gotta love it. Here's what the conversation didn't include: any mention of voters who made may have sat out the election in disgust over the American underwritten atrocities in Gaza, any meaningful engagement with the critique that attempting to court Republican voters might have come at the expense of turning out party faithful. That's going to be remind you of that later. Or any reflection that there may have been a better use for $20 million worth of donations that a concert series featuring Katy Perry, Bon Jovi, and 2 Chainz. At least one DNC source speculated the astronomical price tag associated with the concerts, which Cutter championed, was a contributing factor to the DNC's decision to lay off staff early. So that's absurd. So they had to lay off a lot more staff than they normally do. I don't know if you guys caught wind of this story, but yes, Democrats laid off 2/3, the DNC laid off 2/3 of their staff with no warning and no severance, which is very, very odd. It's highly odd, right? Like there's always layoffs after an election, a presidential election cycle. Of course, you're going to need volunteers. You're going to need a bunch of people to run the campaign. Just do the deal, the blah, 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 blah. You get it, right? But it's generally 1/3, not 2/3. It's insane what they had to do. And then with no severance, like, that's insane as well, especially for the DNC. Especially for the DNC. It's insane. In the absence of introspection from senior campaign officials themselves, Rolling Stone spoke with consultants, strategists, and party staffers, some who worked directly with the Harris campaign who requested anonymity to speak freely, and others who worked on prior presidential campaigns to solicit their unvarnished opinions about where Harris Walls went wrong. And they have a lot of opinions. Opinions about Joe Biden's decision to run for re-election in the first place, about Harris's decision to keep his senior team in place instead of firing them immediately, and about the candidate's reluctance to signal a meaningful break from a historically unpopular president, about the campaign's decision to squander their budget on stunt advertising while failing to deliver a consistent message to persuadable voters, about the pitfalls of relying on efficiency models to guide paid media investments, about their failure to answer the biggest attack launched by their opponent, and yeah, pretty much everyone agreed she should have gone on Joe Rogan. Sorry about those little screw ups right there, y'all. No, she shouldn't have gone on Joe Rogan, as a matter of fact, right? It was a good idea to not go on Joe Rogan. Why is this, you might ask? Because everybody was under the impression that Kamala Harris could actually speak eloquently, that she could actually get out there and articulate her positions like Donald Trump can, for crying out loud. But she can't do that. This is why it was good she didn't go on Joe Rogan, because her entire being would have been just blown apart, just smashed into bits when she can't answer simple questions. Like, how come we didn't do anything about the border? Simple questions. Oh, well, I went to the border. I didn't go to Europe either. Yeah, it's like ridiculous. Like, come on. Answer simple questions. She doesn't seem like an authentic person. When she gets out there on the campaign trail, she speaks in all these platitudes and all this garbage, this word salad nonsense, right? And that's all she can speak, it seems like. And it's circuitous garbage is what I call it, because she speaks in circles and says nothing whatsoever. But you love that list from everything. Oh, it's Joe Biden's fault for actually running a re-election campaign. Yes, I could say that. You could go back and say that if Joe Biden would have decided to not run for re-election, Kamala Harris wouldn't have done any better, to be honest with you, but we could have got somebody like Dean Phillips or RFK Jr. would have stayed as a Democrat, as a matter of fact. But, you know, outside of all these things, you gotta love the seething coming from these people. Let's keep going. Any honest accounting has to begin with the fact that the biggest burden on Harris's candidacy was the fact that it began in July 2024 rather than April 2023, a reality created by Biden's insistence on running for re-election after he aggressively signaled he would serve a single term in office. That is right. I don't know if you guys remember that, but he was supposed to be a transition candidate. He was supposed to just come in, defeat Donald Trump, and then go bye-bye because he's too old, right? And the presidency did nothing for his rapid cognitive decline. Did nothing for that. He's bad off right now, y'all. He's really bad off, in case you haven't noticed. Only one halfway credible challenger emerged to raise questions about this decision, Rep. Dean Phillips of Minnesota, who was recruited to enter that race by Steve Schmidt. I always talk about Dean Phillips. And what did Democrats do to Dean Phillips to keep him from becoming a good candidate, to keep him from challenging Joe Biden and actually having a chance to win, a much better chance than Kamala Harris? The media, the leftist media, thought, let's go with Joe Biden, and refused to give Dean Phillips any significant time, right? He had like 12 minutes on all of CNN, ABC, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, all those places. I know I probably said CNN twice, but you know what I mean. He had like 12 minutes on all those platforms. That's it. Nothing whatsoever. They didn't put him up in the polls. None of that. Right? And Democrats sued this guy to keep him off the ballot. It's insane. How does a party sue their own candidates to keep them off the ballot? It's absurd on its face, y'all. Absurd. What Joe Biden did was the greatest act of egotism in American history, Schmidt says, and it was supported and sustained by a relatively small handful of powerful people. That is right. The news media, for one, and then the Democrat elites, for two, who eventually went on to kick Joe Biden out and then put up a deadbeat as their candidate. And I mean deadbeat as in she can't talk. She's just not there. She's a corpse. Almost as bad as Joe Biden. Schmidt places Biden's strategist Anna Dunn and Steve Ricchetti, as well as First Lady Jill Biden and the Morning Joe co-host Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski at the top of that list. Multiple people who spoke with Rolling Stone agreed that while Harris's biggest handicap was the position Biden put her in, her first failure as a candidate was her inability or refusal to differentiate herself from the president. No, as a matter of fact, she tried to do that, but you know what? She was the vice president. There is no separating yourself from Joe Biden when you're the vice president. It's just not possible. You can't do that. So how can you blame her for that? That's not her fault. That's Joe Biden's fault. As a matter of fact, once again, all of that critique falls back upon Joe Biden for starting his re-election campaign in the first place, when he knows damn good and well he wasn't cognitively there. He wasn't healthy enough, we'll put it that way, to do it. Not nearly healthy enough to do it. Jill Biden and all of his surrounding, his cabinet members, none of these people, they all come out and said, he's fine. He's a dynamo in the background. And yet he gets out here in front of cameras and he can't speak. He stumbles through every single sentence. He's falling off of bicycles. He's falling up the stairs, for crying out loud. Gets lost on stage. Can't figure out where to go. Leaves the stage early, as a matter of fact. Shakes the hands of ghosts and is doing all of these things when everybody can see this. And then you've got Democratic pundits, you know, not the mainstream narrative machine, of course, but Democratic pundits on YouTube like, what are we doing here? No, get this guy out of here. Y'all should have listened to Cenk Uygur, as a matter of fact, when he's saying Biden is garbage. As a matter of fact, Cenk Uygur, knowing he would never have a single chance to become president, ran for president for two reasons. One, just to show how bad Joe Biden was, because he could see it. At least Cenk Uygur doesn't live in this fake reality where everything is made up and they just tell you what you want to know and then you just go with that. And the second reason was to answer a constitutional question: are naturalized citizens second-class citizens? That the way he put it is basically, if you're a naturalized citizen, you can't run for president because you have to be a natural-born citizen. And his argument was that if there is any differential between natural-born citizens and naturalized citizens, right? If there's something a natural-born citizen can do that a naturalized citizen can't do, then you've just created a second-class citizen, basically. And that was his point. And that's a constitutional question that absolutely needs to be answered, I think. Now, there are some reasons, and I think some stipulations need to be put in behind that if they ever do get to a decision on this proposal here, right? On this constitutional question, right? Because he's correct when you think about it like that. Now, I understand the arguments here, and I know I'm getting off of this because screw it. Why not? Right, so there would have to be some stipulations, because then you could get somebody like, Xi Jinping coming over here, being naturalized as a United States citizen, and then going on to become the president of the United States without actually being a U.S. citizen. In other words, they could be naturalized and then, run the country as a Chinese Communist Party member. We don't want that. However, we also don't want somebody who came to this country as a child, was naturalized as a citizen, and lives their entire life as a loyal American, just as much of a patriot as anybody else in this country, being denied the ability for the top job in this country. I think that's absurd. So there would need to be some stipulations in there that says you have to have lived the vast majority of your life in America, or something like that, something to that effect. I know that's not perfect, right? But if this question is going to be answered, there would definitely need to be some stipulations to this, because we could just get anybody. We can get Vladimir Putin becoming naturalized and then come over here and try to run for president. Not saying he would ever get elected, because he wouldn't, but we could get a figure like that. We could get somebody who has been propagandized by the Chinese Communist Party, become an American citizen, and then get to the presidency and try to reform this country into a communist state. And we don't want that. Those are genuine concerns. That's the other side of the argument, right? But I just wanted to get that off my chest right quick, y'all. If there was only a thing they could have done, it would have been to make a loud and clean break, says one strategist who worked to elect Harris. On Pod Save America, Cutter credited that choice to Harris herself. She felt like she was part of the administration, so why should she look back and cherry pick some things that she would have done differently when she was part of it? That was part of the problem. When asked if she would do anything differently, she said, "I can't think of a damn thing." So that forced Americans to look at the Afghanistan withdrawal and say they did that on purpose. They didn't care about those 13 service members that died. They didn't care that it made the United States look like utter buffoons on the world stage. They didn't care that it was a complete and utter disaster, a failure of a withdrawal. We went running from Afghanistan with our freaking tail between our legs. And you wouldn't have done a damn thing different? How about on inflation? It goes for every single mistake the Biden administration has made. You wouldn't have done a damn thing different. That, in my opinion, was the first mistake they made that put her down the path of destruction, as a matter of fact. Because once you say that you don't care about the mistakes you made, you don't have any regrets over the past 4 years, look at all these mistakes. You have no regrets? Okay, this person doesn't care about America. That's the genuine outcome that anybody would think. After hearing that, it's like, are you insane? Really? Just absurd. It's all absurdities. Harris's early candidacy, in that strategist's view, was characterized by a particular and irrelevant vibe that generated a lot of enthusiasm among the Democratic base. But that enthusiasm, in this person's view, quickly dampened after a convention marred by a prominent fight over the war in Gaza and a pledge to ensure America had the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world, followed by weeks of aggressive overtures to woo Republican voters. Okay, so now we've got a pretty good contradiction here. They were talking about earlier that, no, they shouldn't try to pander to Republicans at all, but now they're saying that it's a bad thing that she didn't? Come on, you're being a little bit absurd there. We're almost done here. I know I've still got you here, and I've been trying to shorten up my videos, but this was a lengthy article, y'all. As of this writing, Harris banked 6.8 million fewer votes than Joe Biden, with the heaviest erosion in Democratic strongholds like California and New York and among younger voters, Gen Zs. Figures that indicate a real failure to maintain the Democratic base's enthusiasm for Harris. On Pod Save America, David Plouffe brushed aside the criticism that Harris was too focused on winning Republican support. She wasn't trying to win Republican support. She did nothing at all to gain any Republican voters whatsoever, right? Trying to come out and say you're going to be tough on the border when you haven't been tough on the border is just empty platitudes to the Republican base. That's not trying to garner their votes at all. That's not what that is. We spent a lot of time with voters who we were concerned were going to vote, Plouffe added. And the fact that Liz Cheney was supporting Kamala Harris was not an issue raised by any of them. Yeah, and that was another problem, that if you're trying to pander to Republicans, you got a big problem because Republicans don't like Liz Cheney. And it's shocking that Kamala Harris was proud to have Liz Cheney endorse her. That's absurd, considering that her father, Dick Cheney, was the previous Hitler before Donald Trump was, which was absurd on its face. Why would you want an exiled Republican on your side? How do you think that's going to help you win Republican votes at all? It's just insane. But you gotta love the cope and the seethe coming from the Rolling Stone. You know, there's a million things we could point out that Kamala Harris could have done differently, and she would have probably fared a little bit better. But I really don't think there's anything that she could have done about her speech problem, her word salad key, as we covered in the last video, right? She speaks in circuitous garbage. That's how she talks. And that's not something you can just change overnight, right? That takes a lot of time to do. Just look at my evolution here on YouTube. If you want to see an amazing evolution of how I interact and talk to a camera, go watch my very first video I put out on this channel. It's still up. I'll leave it there just to prove to myself that I'm improving as far as my interactions with the camera and my ability to speak to everybody, right? If you go and watch that video, you'll see jump cut after jump cut after jump cut after jump cut, you know, sometimes 2 and 3 seconds apart from each other. It's absurd. I just couldn't speak. And now I can do these videos with hardly any jump cuts at all. As a matter of fact, some videos I put out, not this one, of course, because sometimes I screw up words or I read something wrong and I'm going to read it again because I mispronounced a word or something. But that's generally the only time I have jump cuts anymore. Usually when I'm just freely speaking like this, I don't have any jump cuts whatsoever because I've refined my technique to speak to a camera, and I'm still refining my technique to this day. I'm still trying to find better ways I can articulate what my thought to life, I guess you could say. You know, it's like text to speech, but it's thought to life, I guess, is how I get it. Because, you know, I've got this track running in the background of me speaking to myself what I'm going to say next constantly. Like, even as I'm reading, it's an insane ability that I didn't know I had, that I never noticed beforehand, that when I'm reading something out, I'm analyzing it and pretty much coming up with a response in the back of my mind as I'm reading something out. It's kind of insane. Didn't know I had that ability until I started reading news on YouTube. And I'm getting better, y'all. Y'all let me know down in the comments if I am getting better. Of course, y'all probably not even here anymore. You know, give me a thumbs up down in the comment section if you're still here listening to this video. I would really appreciate if y'all would do that. Just a thumbs up. Let me know you're still engaged with the video. But I think that's all I got for this one, y'all. I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. And y'all don't forget to smash that like button for me. I sure would appreciate that a whole hell of a lot. Subscribe if you're new around here. And y'all let me know what y'all think. But like I said, that's all I got. I want to thank everybody for watching, and y'all try to have a good day and stay legitical. I gotta go put up more Christmas lights. Peace.